Adam's life was, by all appearances, perfect. His mornings were filled with the sound of his daughter Grace's laughter as she twirled around the living room, her tiny feet pattering against the wooden floor. His evenings were a blend of family dinners, bedtime stories, and the quiet comfort of sitting beside his wife, Vanessa, as they unwound from their day. For 7 years, Adam had built a life he was proud of, one rooted in love and commitment. Vanessa was the kind of woman who lit up any room she walked into. She was intelligent, driven, and effortlessly beautiful. Adam adored her, not just for her looks, but for the way she could make him laugh with her sharp wit or calm him with a single touch. Together, they had weathered life's storms and celebrated its triumphs, and their daughter was the crown jewel of their relationship. But perfect lives have a way of revealing cracks when you least expect them. It started with a name, Derek. Vanessa had mentioned him casually one evening, a new colleague from work. "He's sharp and charismatic," she'd said, swirling her wine. "We're working on a big project together." Adam hadn't thought much of it at the time. Vanessa was social and often spoke highly of her coworkers. But as the weeks passed, Derek's name seemed to come up more frequently. "Derek suggested this great restaurant," she'd say. Or, "Derek thinks I'd be perfect for this new initiative at work." It wasn't just the frequency that unsettled Adam. It was the tone. There was a spark in her voice when she spoke about him, a subtle shift that Adam couldn't quite place. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, smiled, and quickly typed out a reply. Adam, sitting beside her, noticed the name on the screen, Derek. "Work stuff?" he asked lightly. Vanessa nodded, her smile tight. "Just coordinating tomorrow's meeting." Her answer seemed reasonable, but Adam couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Vanessa had always been open about her work, often sharing the ups and downs of her day. Lately, though, she'd grown more reserved, her answers shorter, her focus elsewhere. Adam tried to push the doubts aside, reminding himself that trust was the foundation of their marriage. Vanessa was his partner, the mother of his child. She wouldn't betray that. Still, the changes were hard to ignore. Vanessa started coming home later, citing long hours and deadlines. She seemed more distracted, her phone always close at hand. When Adam tried to bring it up, she dismissed his concerns with a wave of her hand. "You're overthinking things," she'd say, her tone dismissive. "It's just work." But it wasn't just work. Adam noticed the way Vanessa began paying more attention to her appearance. New dresses, freshly styled hair, makeup on days she usually wouldn't bother. He wanted to believe it was harmless, that she was simply taking pride in herself. But the changes, combined with her growing distance, painted a picture Adam didn't want to see. One Friday evening, Adam suggested a date night. "Let's get a babysitter for Grace and have dinner. Just the two of us," he said, hoping to reconnect. Vanessa hesitated. "I can't," she said, avoiding his gaze. "I promised Derek I'd help him prep for Monday's presentation." Adam's stomach sank. He forced a smile, trying to mask his disappointment. "Another time, then." That night, as Vanessa left the house with a breezy, "Don't wait up," Adam sat in the quiet living room, his mind racing. He wanted to trust her. He wanted to believe that his unease was nothing more than paranoia. But deep down, a small voice whispered that something was wrong. Vanessa's late nights became more frequent, and the gap between them widened. She grew irritable when Adam asked questions, snapping at him for prying. "I'm under a lot of pressure," she said one night, her voice sharp. "Can't you just trust me?" Adam nodded, swallowing his doubts. But the strain was beginning to show. Even Grace, in her innocent way, picked up on it. "Mommy's always busy," she said one evening, her big eyes filled with confusion. "Does she still love us?" Adam's heart broke at her words. He hugged her tightly, whispering, "Of course she does, sweetheart. Mommy loves us very much." But as the days turned into weeks, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that their perfect life was slipping away, one late night, one secretive text at a time. The foundation of their marriage, once solid and unshakable, was beginning to crack. And no matter how much Adam wanted to believe otherwise, he couldn't ignore the signs. The perfect beginning, it seemed, was starting to unravel. Adam had always considered himself an optimist, someone who chose to believe in the good in people, especially the woman he'd vowed to love for the rest of his life. But lately, that optimism felt like a thin veil, barely concealing the growing unease that gnawed at him. Vanessa was slipping away, and Adam was beginning to feel like a bystander in his own marriage. The signs were there, and they were impossible to ignore. Vanessa's late nights were no longer occasional. They had become routine. Her phone, once casually left on countertops and coffee tables, was now glued to her hand or tucked away in her purse, always face down. When it buzzed, she'd glance at it with a flicker of a smile before hurriedly locking the screen. One evening, as Adam tidied up the kitchen after dinner, he noticed Vanessa standing by the window, her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was soft, almost conspiratorial, and though Adam couldn't make out the words, the tone was unmistakable. When she hung up and turned back to him, her expression was neutral, as if nothing had happened. "Who was that?" Adam asked, keeping his voice casual. "Work stuff," she replied, brushing past him. "Nothing important. Work stuff." That phrase had become her shield, a convenient explanation for every unexplained call, every late night, every subtle change in her demeanor. Adam wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her. But the weight of his doubts was becoming unbearable. One Saturday, while Adam was mowing the lawn, their neighbor Caitlin strolled over, waving a friendly hello. Caitlin was a cheerful woman, always eager to chat, and Adam welcomed the distraction. "I saw Vanessa the other day," Caitlin said, leaning against the fence. "She was at that new cafe downtown. Looked like she was having a great time." Adam smiled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Probably a work meeting. She's been busy lately." Caitlin tilted her head, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. "Oh, I didn't realize Derek was her colleague. They seemed pretty cozy." The words hit Adam like a punch to the gut. "Derek?" he repeated, his voice strained. "Yeah, tall guy, dark hair, confident." They were laughing and leaning in close. "I figured they must be close friends." Adam forced a laugh, masking the storm brewing inside him. "Yeah, they work together a lot," he said, his voice tight. Caitlin, oblivious to his discomfort, continued chatting, but Adam barely heard her. His mind was racing, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle he wished didn't exist. That evening, he decided to confront Vanessa. He waited until Grace was asleep, then found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up as he sat down beside her. "Vanessa," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him, "I ran into Caitlin today." Vanessa glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Oh? How is she?" "She mentioned seeing you with Derek at a cafe," Adam said, watching her closely. "She said you looked pretty close." Vanessa's face hardened, her eyes narrowing. "Caitlin needs to mind her own business," she said sharply. "It was a work meeting, Adam. Nothing more." "Was it?" Adam pressed, his voice rising slightly. "Because it doesn't feel like work when you're spending more time with him than with your family." Vanessa set her phone down, her gaze icy. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I don't know," Adam admitted, his frustration spilling out. "But something's changed, Vanessa. You're distant, secretive, and I can't ignore it anymore." Vanessa's lips curled into a bitter smile. "You're paranoid," she snapped. "This is all in your head, Adam. You're insecure because Derek is confident and successful, and you can't handle it." Adam recoiled, the accusation stinging more than he cared to admit. "This isn't about insecurity," he said, his voice shaking. "It's about honesty. I just want to know the truth." "You want the truth?" Vanessa said, standing abruptly. "Fine. I have feelings for Derek. There it is. Are you happy now?" Adam stared at her, stunned. The words hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. "You have feelings for him?" he echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Vanessa said, crossing her arms. "And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Derek makes me feel alive, Adam. He's everything you're not. Confident, ambitious, a real man." The insult cut deep, but Adam barely registered it. His world was crumbling around him, and all he could think about was Grace, asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing below. "So, what does this mean?" Adam asked, his voice hollow. "Are you saying you're leaving?" Vanessa's expression softened, but only slightly. "I deserve to be happy," she said, "and Derek makes me happy. I'm sorry, Adam, but I can't do this anymore." Adam sat in stunned silence as Vanessa walked away, her words echoing in his mind. She deserved to be happy. And what about him? What about their daughter? Did their happiness mean nothing? As the front door closed behind Vanessa, Adam felt the weight of her betrayal settle over him like a heavy fog. The perfect life they had built together was gone, shattered by the one person he had trusted most. And for the first time, Adam realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Adam sat in the empty living room, the quiet pressing down on him like a physical weight. Vanessa's words echoed in his mind, relentless and cruel. "Derek makes me happy. He's everything you're not." He clenched his fists, staring at the darkened television screen, his reflection staring back at him, broken, defeated, and questioning every decision that had led him to this moment. Upstairs, Grace was asleep, blissfully unaware of the upheaval her parents' marriage was facing. Adam's love for his daughter was the only thing anchoring him as his world crumbled. He couldn't afford to fall apart. Grace needed stability, and he would do everything in his power to provide it. The following days were a blur. Vanessa packed her things and left, moving into Derek's apartment without so much as a backward glance. Adam moved out shortly after, unable to bear the memories that clung to every corner of the house. He found a modest two-bedroom apartment close enough to Grace's school, determined to create a safe and loving space for her. But even as Adam focused on Grace, the betrayal gnawed at him. He replayed every moment of his marriage, searching for clues he had missed, wondering if there had been signs of Vanessa's unhappiness. He questioned himself endlessly. Was he not enough? Had he failed her somehow? The answers never came, and the pain was compounded by Vanessa's brazen flaunting of her new life. On social media, she and Derek were the perfect couple, their posts filled with smiles, laughter, and declarations of love. Vanessa announced her pregnancy within weeks of moving in with Derek, captioning a photo of her growing belly with, "Excited for this new chapter with the man of my dreams." Adam avoided the post as much as he could, but friends and acquaintances seemed intent on keeping him informed. "Did you see Vanessa's latest picture?" they'd ask, their voices tinged with pity. "I can't believe how quickly she's moved on." Jordan, Adam's best friend, was the only one who seemed to understand what he was going through. "Stop torturing yourself by looking at her life," Jordan advised during one of their late-night talks. "She made her choice. You need to focus on you and Grace now." Adam nodded, but the advice was easier said than done. Nights were the hardest, the silence amplifying the ache in his chest. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying every hurtful word Vanessa had said, every moment she'd shared with Derek while still pretending to be his wife. His sister, Lila, was another lifeline during those dark days. She showed up at his apartment unannounced, armed with groceries and words of encouragement. "You're stronger than this, Adam," she said one evening as she helped him unpack boxes. "Grace needs you to be strong. And one day, you'll realize Vanessa's betrayal was a blessing in disguise." "A blessing?" Adam asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "How can any of this be a blessing?" "Because she showed you who she really is," Lila said simply. "And now you're free to find someone who deserves you." Adam wanted to believe her, but the road to recovery felt endless. He threw himself into his work, expanding his small tech business and taking on more clients than ever before. It was a distraction, a way to drown out the pain. But even as his professional life flourished, the emptiness lingered. Grace became his greatest source of comfort and motivation. She was too young to fully understand what had happened, but she sensed the tension and asked questions that broke Adam's heart. "Why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore?" she asked one night as he tucked her into bed. Adam forced a smile, stroking her hair. "Mommy and I are just living in different houses now," he said gently. "But we both love you very much." Grace seemed to accept the answer, her trust in him unwavering. Adam vowed to never let her down, to shield her from the fallout of Vanessa's choices as much as possible. He took her to the park, helped her with school projects, and read her favorite stories at bedtime. In those moments, he felt a glimmer of hope, a reminder that his life still held meaning. Meanwhile, Vanessa's perfect new life began to show cracks. Through mutual friends, Adam learned that Derek's charm had faded, replaced by a controlling and selfish nature. He was reckless with money, and Vanessa found herself struggling to manage their finances while preparing for the arrival of their child. Jordan couldn't hide his satisfaction when he shared the updates. "Karma's catching up to her," he said with a smirk. "She thought the grass was greener, but it's just weeds." Adam didn't respond. Part of him wanted to take pleasure in Vanessa's struggles, but another part felt hollow at the thought. She was still Grace's mother, and as much as she had hurt him, he didn't want her to fail entirely. For Grace's sake, he hoped she would find her footing. But Adam didn't have time to dwell on Vanessa's choices. He was too busy picking up the pieces of his own life, finding strength in the love of his daughter, the support of his friends and family, and the quiet determination to prove, to himself, if no one else, that he could rebuild. It wasn't easy, and there were still nights when the pain threatened to overwhelm him. But every morning, when he saw Grace's bright smile and heard her laughter, he knew he was doing the right thing. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, Adam felt a spark of hope. He wasn't just surviving. He was beginning to live again. 2 years after Vanessa left, Adam hardly recognized the man he had become. The timid, heartbroken husband who had once questioned his worth was gone, replaced by a confident and driven entrepreneur. The journey had been far from easy, but every step forward had been a victory in itself. It started with small changes. After Vanessa's departure, Adam had thrown himself into his work, using it as a lifeline to distract from the pain. His tech business, which had been a modest operation, quickly began to expand. Adam poured his energy into innovation, forging partnerships, and building a name for himself in the industry. What had once been a simple venture was now a thriving enterprise, with his services in high demand. But work wasn't the only area where Adam had transformed. Encouraged by his best friend Jordan, he had taken up fitness as a way to channel his frustration. Early mornings at the gym became his sanctuary, the weights a physical manifestation of the emotional burdens he was shedding. The changes were slow at first, but over time, Adam saw results, not just in his physique, but in his confidence. By the time his business reached its second anniversary, Adam was no longer the same man Vanessa had walked out on. He was strong, self-assured, and focused on creating a life that revolved around his priorities: Grace, his career, and his own well-being. Grace had been his guiding star throughout it all. Her laughter, her hugs, and her boundless curiosity reminded Adam why he had to keep moving forward. He'd worked hard to ensure she felt loved and secure, shielding her from the fallout of Vanessa's betrayal. Their bond had only grown stronger, and Adam found joy in the simple moments they shared: playing board games, reading bedtime stories, and cheering her on at school events. It was during one of those school events, a parent-child art night, that Adam met Nora. Nora was one of the organizers, a kind-hearted woman with an easy smile and a calm presence that instantly put people at ease. She had auburn hair that framed her face in soft waves and a voice that carried warmth in every word. Adam noticed her right away, but it wasn't until Grace dragged him over to the art supplies table that they spoke. "Hi there," Nora said, her eyes crinkling with a smile as she handed Grace a set of paints. "What are you two creating tonight?" "We're making a dragon," Grace announced proudly, holding up a rough sketch she had drawn. "Daddy's going to help me color it." "That sounds like a masterpiece in the making," Nora said, glancing at Adam. "And you must be the lucky dad." Adam chuckled, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. "That's me, Adam." "Nora," she replied, extending a hand. "Nice to meet you." The conversation was brief, but it left an impression. Over the next few weeks, Adam found himself looking forward to seeing Nora at school events. Their interactions were casual at first, friendly smiles, polite exchanges, but there was an undeniable connection that began to grow. Nora had a way of making him feel seen, not as a man defined by his past, but as someone worthy of a fresh start. One evening, after a particularly long day, Adam received a message from Nora. "Hey, I know it's short notice, but a few parents are getting coffee after the PTA meeting tomorrow. Care to join? Adam hesitated, his instinct to retreat into his familiar routines kicking in. But then he thought about the progress he had made, the life he was building, and the promise he had made to himself to embrace new opportunities. I'll be there, he replied. The coffee meetup turned out to be a pivotal moment. Surrounded by other parents, Adam felt a sense of camaraderie he hadn't experienced in years. And amidst the chatter and laughter, he found himself drawn to Nora. She was easy to talk to, her wit and intelligence shining through in every conversation. As the weeks turned into months, Adam and Nora grew closer. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, built on mutual respect and shared values. Nora admired Adam's resilience, his dedication to Grace, and the quiet strength he carried. And Adam, in turn, found comfort in Nora's compassion, her unwavering support, and the lightness she brought to his life. But as Adam began to let Nora into his world, Vanessa's presence lingered in the background. Though she was still with Derek, their relationship was far from the picture-perfect facade she had once flaunted. Rumors of Derek's controlling behavior and financial irresponsibility reached Adam through mutual friends, but he chose not to dwell on it. Vanessa's choices were her own, and he was determined not to let her chaos disrupt his progress. Still, there were moments when Grace would come home from a visit with her mother, her eyes clouded with confusion. "Why does Mommy get so mad at Derek?" she asked one evening as Adam tucked her into bed. Adam took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements," he said gently, "but you don't need to worry about that. Mommy loves you, and so do I." Grace nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. But Adam couldn't ignore the pang of sadness in her eyes, a reminder that Vanessa's struggles, though distant, still had an impact on their daughter. Through it all, Nora remained a constant source of strength. She embraced Grace with open arms, never trying to replace Vanessa but instead becoming a trusted presence in her life. For Adam, Nora represented everything he had thought he'd lost: kindness, stability, and the possibility of a future filled with love. As the second anniversary of Vanessa's departure approached, Adam reflected on how far he had come. The pain of betrayal had once seemed insurmountable, but now it felt like a distant memory. He had rebuilt his life, not for Vanessa's approval, but for himself and Grace. And as he looked toward the future, with Nora by his side, Adam realized that his best chapters were still ahead. 3 years after Vanessa walked out of Adam's life, he felt like a completely different man. He'd rebuilt himself from the ground up, focusing on his business, his daughter, and his relationship with Nora. Life had finally started to feel stable, peaceful, even. But life has a way of testing even the strongest resolve, and for Adam, the test came in the form of an unexpected knock at his door. It was a chilly autumn evening. Adam was in the kitchen, helping Grace with her homework, while Nora prepared tea in the background. The knock was sharp, startling in the stillness of the evening. Adam frowned, glancing at Nora, who looked equally puzzled. "Are you expecting anyone?" he asked. Nora shook her head. "Not at all." Curious but cautious, Adam walked to the door. When he opened it, his breath caught in his throat. Standing there, bundled in a coat and holding a small child, was Vanessa. Her appearance was a stark contrast to the confident, composed woman he remembered. Her hair was unkempt, dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her posture was hesitant, almost fragile. The boy in her arms, no older than 2, clung to her, his face buried in her shoulder. "Adam," Vanessa said, her voice trembling, "I need to talk to you." Adam stood frozen, a storm of emotions surging through him. Shock, anger, confusion. It had been 3 years since she left, 3 years since she chose Derek and a new life over the family they'd built together. And now, here she was, standing on his doorstep as if she had any right to intrude on the life he'd painstakingly rebuilt. "Vanessa," he said finally, his tone cold, "what are you doing here?" She glanced down at the child in her arms before meeting his eyes. I made a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life." Adam stared at her, disbelief washing over him. "You've got to be kidding me." Please, Vanessa said, stepping forward. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to hear me out. Adam blocked her path, his hand gripping the edge of the door. I don't think there's anything you can say that I want to hear. Adam, I'm begging you, she said, her eyes filling with tears. Derek, he's not who I thought he was. He's controlling, manipulative. I can't do this anymore. I left him. Adam felt a flicker of bitter satisfaction, but quickly pushed it aside. And you thought coming here was the solution? He asked, his voice hard. After everything you did, after all the pain you caused? I know I don't deserve your kindness, Vanessa said, her voice trembling, but I've changed. I want to make things right. For Grace. For us. Adam let out a bitter laugh. You want to make things right now? After 3 years? You think you can just waltz back into my life and pretend nothing happened? Vanessa flinched at the harshness in his voice, but she didn't back down. I've realized how much I took for granted, she said softly. You were a good husband, Adam. A good father. I was blinded by Derek's promises, and I lost sight of what really mattered. Adam looked at her, his mind racing. Part of him wanted to slam the door in her face, to end the conversation right there. But another part, the part that still carried the scars of her betrayal, wanted closure. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him to shield Nora and Grace from the confrontation. Vanessa, he said, his voice low and controlled, do you even hear yourself? You threw away everything we had. You left me, left Grace, for someone you barely knew. And now you're here, expecting what? Forgiveness? A second chance? Tears streamed down Vanessa's face as she shook her head. I'm not expecting anything, she said. I don't know where else to go. Adam's jaw tightened. You should have thought about that before you walked out. I was wrong, Vanessa whispered. I see that now, but I'm here because I want to fix things. For Grace's sake. Adam's heart twisted at the mention of Grace. He thought about the nights she had cried herself to sleep, missing her mother. The questions she had asked that he couldn't answer. The pain Vanessa's absence had caused her. But he also thought about the life they had built without Vanessa, the stability he had worked so hard to provide. Grace was happy, thriving, and surrounded by love. Bringing Vanessa back into their lives would risk undoing all of that. I've moved on, Vanessa, Adam said firmly. Grace and I have moved on. You don't get to come back and disrupt that. Vanessa's face crumpled, but Adam didn't waver. He had spent too many nights piecing his life back together to let her tear it apart again. Without another word, Adam stepped back and closed the door. The sound of it shutting echoed in the silence, a final punctuation to the chapter Vanessa had tried to reopen. Inside, Nora looked at him with quiet understanding. Everything okay? She asked gently. Adam nodded, his expression resolute. It is now. Later that night, as he tucked Grace into bed, Adam felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. Vanessa's return had stirred old wounds, but it had also reminded him of how far he had come. He wasn't the same man she had left behind. He was stronger, wiser, and surrounded by the love of the family he had chosen. And for the first time, he realized he was truly free. In the days following Vanessa's unannounced visit, Adam found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed since she left. Once, her betrayal had shattered him, leaving him adrift and questioning everything he thought he knew about love, family, and trust. But now, as he looked around at the life he had rebuilt, he realized just how far he'd come. The morning after Vanessa's visit, Adam sat at the breakfast table with Grace, who was chattering about an upcoming school project. Nora stood by the counter, pouring coffee, her presence a steadying force in his life. Adam watched them both, his heart swelling with gratitude. This was his family now, solid, loving, and unshakable. Vanessa's return could have derailed him. Years ago, it might have. But now, Adam saw it for what it was, a desperate attempt to cling to a past she had destroyed. He had closed the door on her, both literally and figuratively, and he wasn't about to reopen it. Daddy, can we paint this weekend? Grace asked, her big brown eyes sparkling with excitement. I want to make a picture for Nora. Adam smiled, his chest tightening with emotion. Of course, sweetheart. That sounds like a great idea. Nora looked up from her coffee, her expression soft. I can't wait to see what you make, Grace, she said warmly. Grace beamed, her happiness infectious. For Adam, moments like these were proof that he had made the right decisions. He had protected Grace from the chaos Vanessa had brought into their lives, and now she was thriving. That evening, as Adam and Nora sat on the couch, he told her more about Vanessa's visit. Nora listened quietly, her hand resting on his knee. When he finished, she looked at him with a mixture of sympathy and pride. You handled that better than most people would, she said. You didn't let her guilt or manipulate you. Adam nodded, his jaw tightening. I've spent too much time rebuilding my life to let her tear it apart again. Grace deserves better. We all do. Nora leaned closer, her voice gentle. You've built something beautiful, Adam. Don't let anyone make you question that. Her words stayed with him, a reminder of how far he had come. Over the next few weeks, Adam threw himself into his work and his family, ensuring that neither Vanessa's visit nor her absence disrupted the life he had created. Vanessa, meanwhile, seemed to retreat from their lives entirely. Adam heard nothing from her, no follow-up visits, no messages, no calls. Part of him wondered what she was doing, how she was coping, but he quickly dismissed the thought. Her choices were no longer his concern. Instead, Adam focused on the future. His relationship with Nora continued to flourish, their bond growing deeper with each passing day. She had become not just his partner but his confidant, his rock, and his greatest supporter. And Grace adored her, often declaring, "Nora's the best," with a giggle and a hug. One evening, as they sat together after Grace had gone to bed, Nora brought up a topic that had been on Adam's mind as well. "Have you thought about what's next for us?" she asked, her tone casual but curious. Adam turned to her, a small smile playing on his lips. "What do you mean?" Nora shrugged, though her eyes sparkled with anticipation. "I mean, we're already a family, but maybe it's time to make it official?" Adam's heart skipped a beat. He had been thinking about proposing for weeks, but hearing Nora bring it up made him realize just how ready he was. She wasn't just the woman he loved. She was the missing piece of the life he had always wanted. "I've been thinking the same thing," he admitted, reaching for her hand. "I want us to build a life together, Nora. Not just as partners, but as a family." Her smile widened, and she leaned in to kiss him. "I'd like that," she said softly. The next few weeks were filled with quiet planning. Adam wanted the proposal to be meaningful but intimate, something that reflected their journey together. He chose a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains, a place where they could escape the noise of daily life and focus on each other. When the moment came, it was perfect. Under a sky full of stars, Adam knelt before Nora, his heart pounding as he held out the ring he had chosen with care. "Nora," he said, his voice steady despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm him, "you've shown me what love really means. You've been my strength, my partner, and my best friend. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears glistened in Nora's eyes as she nodded, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Adam. 1,000 times yes." Their embrace was filled with joy and promise, the past finally giving way to a future filled with hope. For Adam, the proposal wasn't just a declaration of love. It was a symbol of his healing, a testament to the life he had rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Back home, Grace was thrilled when they told her the news. "Does this mean Nora's going to be my forever mommy?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. Adam smiled, pulling her into a hug. "It means we're all going to be a family, sweetheart. Forever." Grace squealed with delight, and in that moment, Adam felt a sense of peace he hadn't thought possible. The road to this point had been long and painful, but it had led him to something beautiful. As the weeks turned into months, Adam and Nora began planning their wedding, a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. Vanessa's absence no longer felt like a void. It was simply a chapter that had ended, clearing the way for something far greater. Adam knew there would always be challenges, but with Nora by his side and Grace in his arms, he felt ready for whatever the future held. Together, they were building a life filled with love, laughter, and the kind of happiness that comes from overcoming life's greatest trials. Adam's life had finally fallen into place. His relationship with Nora was flourishing, Grace was thriving in school, and his business was growing at an impressive pace. The chaos Vanessa had brought into his life was now a distant memory, or so he thought. It began with subtle disruptions. Grace returned home from a visit with her mother unusually quiet, her bubbly demeanor replaced by unease. Adam noticed it immediately as he helped her unpack her bag. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he asked gently. Grace hesitated, twisting the hem of her shirt. "Mommy said," she paused, looking unsure whether to continue. Adam crouched to her level, his voice steady. "What did Mommy say?" "She said you don't love me as much anymore because you have Nora now," Grace said in a small voice, tears welling in her eyes. "Is that true?" Adam's chest tightened, anger and heartbreak swirling within him. He hugged Grace tightly, kissing the top of her head. "That's absolutely not true, Grace. I love you more than anything in the world, and that will never, ever change." Grace nodded, sniffling, but the seed of doubt Vanessa had planted was clear. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa's interference became more apparent. She began sending cryptic messages to Adam, disguised as concerns for Grace's well-being. "I'm worried Nora is overstepping," one text read. "Grace needs her real mother, not a replacement." Adam ignored most of the messages, unwilling to engage in Vanessa's attempts to create drama. But when Grace started acting out at school, he knew he couldn't let it continue. One evening, as he and Nora sat down to discuss the situation, Nora's calm and unwavering support reminded Adam why he had fallen in love with her. "She's trying to disrupt what we've built," Nora said, her tone firm but empathetic. "But we can't let her win, Adam. Grace needs stability, and we can give that to her." Adam nodded, his jaw tight. "I won't let Vanessa manipulate Grace. It's not fair to her." Vanessa's attempts escalated when she began spreading rumors about Nora. Mutual friends approached Adam, hesitantly sharing the lies Vanessa was telling. "She's saying Nora's only with you for the money," one friend said awkwardly, "and that she's trying to push Vanessa out of Grace's life." The accusations infuriated Adam, but Nora handled them with grace. "People who matter know the truth," she said. "Let Vanessa dig her own hole. We'll focus on what's important." But when Vanessa's behavior began affecting Grace's mental health, Adam knew it was time to take action. He consulted with his lawyer, who advised him to document everything and pursue legal measures to protect Grace from the toxicity. "She's creating a hostile environment," the lawyer said. "You have every right to enforce boundaries." Adam filed for a modification to their custody arrangement, outlining Vanessa's manipulative behavior and its impact on Grace. The legal process was grueling, but Adam was determined to shield his daughter from further harm. Vanessa, predictably, reacted with fury. She sent a string of angry messages, accusing Adam of trying to steal Grace from her. But Adam remained steadfast, refusing to be drawn into her emotional outbursts. In the meantime, Nora proved to be an invaluable source of strength. She comforted Grace, reassured Adam, and stood by their side through every challenge. One evening, as Adam sat at his desk, overwhelmed by the mounting stress, Nora placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," she said softly. "Grace will thank you for this one day." Adam nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he admitted. "You'll never have to find out," Nora said with a smile. The court proceedings were tense, with Vanessa painting herself as a devoted mother and Adam as the overbearing ex-husband. But Adam's lawyer presented undeniable evidence of Vanessa's manipulations, including testimonies from Grace's teachers and statements from mutual friends. In the end, the court ruled in Adam's favor, granting him primary custody of Grace and limiting Vanessa's visitation to supervised arrangements. The decision was a relief, but it was bittersweet. Adam couldn't ignore the sadness in Grace's eyes when she realized her time with her mother would be restricted. "Do you think Mommy still loves me?" Grace asked one evening, her voice trembling. Adam knelt beside her, his heart aching. "Of course she does," he said gently. "Your mom loves you in her own way. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and we have to make sure you're safe and happy." Grace nodded slowly, leaning into his embrace. I just want us to be happy, she whispered. We will be, Adam promised. I'll make sure of it. With the custody battle behind them, Adam focused on creating a stable, loving environment for Grace. Vanessa's interference had tested his patience and resilience, but it had also strengthened his bond with Nora and deepened his commitment to his family. As they settled into their new normal, Adam reflected on how far they had come. Vanessa's actions had been hurtful, but they had also reminded him of what truly mattered. The people who stood by him, loved him unconditionally, and helped him build a life worth living. Vanessa's shadow no longer loomed over his life. Adam had moved forward, and this time, he wasn't looking back. The aftermath of the custody battle brought a sense of clarity to Adam's life. With the court ruling in his favor, Vanessa's ability to interfere was finally curtailed. Supervised visits ensured that Grace's well-being came first, and Adam could finally focus on the life he had built without the constant shadow of Vanessa's chaos. But life had a way of demanding growth, even from those who resisted it. Vanessa's path, though separate from Adam's, was one that couldn't be ignored entirely. She, too, began to confront the consequences of her choices. It started quietly. Vanessa, once so vocal and confident about her new life with Derek, began to withdraw from her social circles. Derek's financial recklessness had left her struggling to make ends meet, and his controlling nature had eroded whatever illusions of happiness she had once clung to. Their relationship ended in bitter arguments, leaving Vanessa a single mother with a toddler to care for and no support system to lean on. Her life became a series of small, difficult steps toward survival. She took on a receptionist job at a local clinic, her days filled with monotony and the nagging realization that she had once had so much more. But it wasn't until she saw the impact of her actions on Grace that Vanessa truly began to reevaluate her life. During one supervised visit, Grace hesitated when Vanessa asked about her day. "It's okay," Grace said, her tone guarded. "Daddy and Nora helped me with my project." Vanessa smiled, but the words stung. Grace's connection to Nora was undeniable, and Vanessa couldn't ignore the reality that her daughter had found stability and love in the home Adam had created. It wasn't jealousy she felt, it was guilt. For the first time, Vanessa realized the depth of the pain she had caused, not just to Adam, but to Grace as well. Determined to change, Vanessa began focusing on self-improvement. She attended therapy sessions, something she had always dismissed in the past, and started taking courses to earn a certification in medical billing. It was a small step, but it gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. One evening, as she sat alone in her tiny apartment, Vanessa wrote a letter to Adam. It wasn't an apology meant to absolve her of guilt, but an acknowledgement of the harm she had caused. "Dear Adam, I've spent years running from my mistakes, but I can't do that anymore. I owe you an apology, not just for what I did to you, but for how I failed Grace. I thought I was chasing happiness, but all I did was hurt the people who mattered most. You've given Grace a life filled with love and stability, and I'm grateful for that. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm working on becoming a better person, for her and for myself. Thank you for being the father Grace deserves. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the mother she deserves, too." Vanessa. Vanessa never sent the letter. Instead, she kept it as a reminder of the changes she needed to make. Over time, she found solace in her personal growth, focusing on being present for Grace during their limited visits. She stopped trying to undermine Adam and Nora and instead directed her energy toward building a healthier relationship with her daughter. Meanwhile, Adam and Nora's lives continued to blossom. Their engagement was met with excitement from friends and family, and Grace eagerly took on the role of wedding planner, offering her opinions on everything from flowers to cake flavors. One evening, as they sat together planning the ceremony, Nora turned to Adam with a thoughtful expression. "Have you thought about inviting Vanessa?" Adam blinked, caught off guard. "Inviting Vanessa? To the wedding?" Nora nodded. "She's Grace's mother. This day is about family, and whether we like it or not, she's part of that picture." Adam frowned, considering her words. It was a generous suggestion, one he wasn't sure he could embrace. But Nora's ability to see the bigger picture was one of the reasons he loved her so deeply. "I'll think about it," he said finally. As the wedding day approached, Adam decided against inviting Vanessa. It wasn't out of spite, but out of a desire to keep the day focused on joy and celebration. Vanessa, to her credit, seemed to understand. When Grace told her about the wedding, Vanessa smiled softly and said, "I hope it's a beautiful day for all of you." The wedding itself was everything Adam had hoped for. A small, intimate gathering filled with laughter, love, and the promise of new beginnings. Grace beamed as she walked down the aisle with Adam, her excitement palpable. And when Adam saw Nora waiting for him at the altar, his heart swelled with gratitude. This was the life he had fought for, the life he had earned through resilience, hard work, and the unwavering support of those who truly loved him. As the years passed, Vanessa continued her journey of self-improvement. She remained a distant but supportive presence in Grace's life, respecting the boundaries that had been set. Adam and Nora, meanwhile, thrived in their marriage, building a life filled with love, laughter, and the quiet joy of knowing they had overcome the trials of the past. For Adam, Vanessa's redemption was proof that people could change, but it didn't alter the lessons he had learned from her betrayal. Trust, he knew, was a fragile thing, something to be earned, cherished, and protected. And in Nora, he had found someone who embodied all the qualities he had once thought were lost to him. Their story wasn't just about overcoming heartbreak. It was about growth, resilience, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. And as Adam stood on the porch of their home one evening, watching Grace and Nora laugh together in the garden, he knew he had finally found his happy ending. Adam's life felt like the culmination of every lesson he had learned, every hardship he had endured, and every triumph he had earned. As the years passed, his business grew into an international success, making him a sought-after figure in the tech industry. Invitations to speak at conferences flooded his inbox, and his story of resilience became an inspiration to many. But his greatest success wasn't the accolades or the expanding reach of his business. It was the life he had built with Nora and Grace. Their home was filled with warmth, love, and laughter, a haven from the chaos of the outside world. Grace thrived in school, her creativity and curiosity shining brightly, and Nora remained the steady, loving presence who had transformed Adam's life. One sunny afternoon, Adam attended an industry gala in New York, where he was being honored for his contributions to innovation. As he mingled with the crowd, answering questions and sharing insights, a familiar face caught his eye. Vanessa. She stood near the edge of the room, her posture hesitant, her expression unreadable. Adam's first instinct was to turn away, but something about her presence felt different. She wasn't the confident, sharp-edged woman he remembered. Instead, she seemed quieter, softer. As if sensing his gaze, Vanessa turned and met his eyes. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, with a deep breath, she crossed the room toward him. "Adam," she said, her voice steady but cautious. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Likewise," Adam replied, his tone neutral. "What brings you to this event?" "I've been working with a healthcare tech startup," Vanessa explained. "I handle their billing systems and customer outreach. It's small, but it's meaningful work." Adam nodded, surprised by how genuine she sounded. "That's good to hear. I'm glad things are going well for you." Vanessa offered a faint smile. "I wanted to say congratulations. I've followed your career from a distance, and I'm not surprised you've come this far." "Thank you," Adam said, unsure how to navigate the conversation. The tension that had once defined their interactions was absent, replaced by an odd sense of closure. Vanessa hesitated, then continued. "I also wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." Her words hung in the air, unexpected and raw. Adam studied her, searching for insincerity but finding none. She looked him in the eye, her expression open and vulnerable. "I was selfish," she admitted. "I hurt you, and I hurt Grace, and I can't undo that. But I've worked hard to be better, for her and for myself. I know I can't make up for the past, but I needed you to know that I see the damage I caused." Adam felt a wave of emotions, anger, sadness, and, surprisingly, a sense of peace. He nodded slowly, his voice calm. "I appreciate you saying that, and I hope you found what you were looking for." Vanessa smiled faintly. "I think I have. It's not what I expected, but it's enough. The conversation ended with a polite exchange, and Vanessa quietly excused herself. Adam watched her go, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was a release, a chance to let go of the lingering bitterness and move forward without the shadow of the past. Later that evening, Adam returned home to Nora and Grace. As he walked through the door, Grace ran to greet him, her laughter filling the air. Nora followed, her smile lighting up the room. "How was the gala?" Nora asked, wrapping her arms around him. "Good," Adam said, kissing her forehead. "It reminded me of how far we've come." As they settled in for the evening, Adam reflected on the journey that had brought him here. Vanessa's apology, while unexpected, had been a reminder of how much he had grown. The pain of the past no longer defined him. It had shaped him, taught him resilience, and led him to the life he now cherished. Sitting on the couch with Nora beside him and Grace curled up against his side, Adam felt a profound sense of gratitude. The trials he had faced had been painful, but they had also been transformative. They had shown him the value of true love, the strength of perseverance, and the importance of choosing people who lifted him up rather than tearing him down. "I've been thinking about writing a book," Adam said suddenly, glancing at Nora. "A book?" Nora asked, intrigued. "Yeah," Adam said, smiling. "Something about overcoming adversity. About how heartbreak doesn't have to define you. Maybe it'll help someone who's going through what I went through." Nora's eyes lit up. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Your story could inspire so many people." Grace looked up, her eyes curious. "Can I read it, Daddy?" "Of course," Adam said, laughing. "You'll be my first reader." The idea of sharing his journey with others felt right. Adam had built his life on resilience, on finding beauty in the ashes of his past. And now, he wanted to use that story to help others find their own strength. As the evening turned to night, Adam felt a deep sense of peace. His life wasn't perfect, but it was his, a life filled with love, purpose, and the knowledge that he had overcome every challenge that had come his way. For the first time in a long time, Adam felt truly free. The day of Adam and Nora's wedding was one filled with joy, love, and the promise of a bright future. The ceremony was held at a picturesque vineyard, with rows of grapevines stretching into the horizon and soft, golden light bathing the scene. Friends and family gathered, their faces glowing with happiness as they celebrated the union of two people who had overcome so much to find each other. Grace was perhaps the most excited of all. She had insisted on wearing a lavender dress that matched the wedding's color scheme and had spent the morning twirling in front of the mirror. As Adam adjusted her flower crown, she grinned up at him. "You look like a princess," Adam said, smiling. "I feel like one." Grace replied, her giggles infectious. "And you look like a king, Daddy." Adam chuckled, his heart full. Well, every king needs his queen. As he looked at Grace, he thought about how far they had come. The little girl who had once asked if her mother still loved her now radiated confidence and joy, a testament to the stability and love that had surrounded her over the years. Nora had played a huge part in that transformation, and Adam couldn't wait to officially make her part of their family. When the ceremony began, Adam stood at the altar, his heart racing as he watched Nora walk toward him. She was stunning in a simple but elegant white gown, her auburn hair swept up in soft waves. The love in her eyes as she met his gaze was overwhelming, and Adam felt a lump form in his throat. This was the moment he had dreamed of, the culmination of everything he had worked for. As they exchanged vows, Adam's voice trembled with emotion. "Nora, you came into my life when I thought I'd never find love again. You've shown me kindness, patience, and a love that I didn't think was possible. Today, I promise to love and cherish you, to support you in every way, and to build a life with you filled with laughter, adventure, and endless love." Nora's vows were equally heartfelt. "Adam, you are the strongest, most compassionate man I've ever known. You've taught me the true meaning of resilience and the power of love to heal. I promise to stand by you, to share in your joys and your challenges, and to create a home where Grace, and any family we may grow, will always feel safe and loved." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, The guests erupted into cheers as Adam kissed Nora, sealing their commitment to one another. Grace clapped enthusiastically, shouting, "Yay, Mommy and Daddy!" The reception was a lively celebration, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. Jordan, Adam's best friend, gave a toast that had everyone in tears. Adam is proof that no matter how hard life knocks you down, you can always get back up. He's not just my best friend, he's my hero. And Nora, you've made him happier than I've ever seen him. Here's to a lifetime of love and happiness for the two of you. As the sun set over the vineyard, casting a warm glow over the festivities, Adam and Nora shared their first dance as husband and wife. Grace joined them halfway through, her tiny arms wrapped around Adam's waist as they swayed to the music. In that moment, Adam felt complete. But the day wasn't just about the future. It was also about reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. Vanessa, though not present, had sent a message congratulating them. It was simple and respectful, wishing them happiness and acknowledging her own shortcomings. Adam had read it quietly before the ceremony, feeling a sense of closure. Her words, though unnecessary, showed that she, too, had grown in her own way. The following weeks were filled with new beginnings. Adam and Nora settled into married life, their bond growing stronger as they navigated the joys and challenges of blending their family. Grace adored having Nora as her stepmother, and the three of them began creating traditions that would become the foundation of their life together. Adam's business continued to thrive, but he found himself increasingly drawn to his passion for storytelling. Inspired by Nora's encouragement, he began writing a memoir about his journey, his heartbreak, his resilience, and the love that had given him a second chance. The process was cathartic, allowing him to reflect on the lessons he had learned and the strength he had found in himself.